Welcome, everyone. I'm Beck Bamberger, and this is Coffee with a Founder. We are literally in a coffee shop today. How about that? Shout out Blue Bottle. They're not a sponsor, but maybe one day we'll see. It is my favorite coffee, and every time I'm in SF, I always go to Blue Bottle. We do this show because we like to talk to founders who are doing the crazy, absurd thing of doing venture-backed companies and trying to change the damn world, hopefully for the better. Cross our fingers. With us today is Mason Mincey. He's the co-founder and COO of Soarce. And Mason, one, welcome, and two, you were buried in abundance, as I like to say. It sounds like, in other words, you cannot keep up with the demand that is coming to you. Correct?
Yeah, it's been crazy recently.
Okay, let's get
So
into it. So give us
yeah,
a little
let's
bit
get
on
it.
Source. Tell us what's up.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, for one, Beck, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure working with you. And I have to read your book when you send it to me. I'm super excited to dive into that for
Thank
sure.
you,
So
Mason.
of course. So Source, what we do in a nutshell is we're an advanced materials company, and what we do is we convert plant waste into nanomaterials that are 8 times stronger than steel, and we use them to upgrade existing materials across industries around the world today to make manufactured parts stronger, lighter, and cheaper to produce using something that's low cost,
Cheaper.
high
Ding,
strength,
ding. Yes.
and from natural resources.
Fantastic. Who says no to this? Because you say cheaper and then it's lighter and all those things.
Exactly.
Yes. Hence, you're getting all the blow up in the world of people wanting to have more. And as you were just telling me before we hit the recording button, since it is actually a material company, it's not like you can just deploy some more code and it works better. You
Nope.
physically cannot keep up with the demand. So maybe that's a little bit of the problem to get into. How do you deal with that when that customer comes and it's like, you know what, we want 11x of what we signed up for 3 weeks ago? Because that sounds
Yeah.
like what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's a challenging time for sure at Source. So we've recently closed some financing, and we're at that
Congrats,
stage
congrats. Yeah.
where, thank you, appreciate it. We're like you mentioned, Beck. We're not building with bits, we're building with atoms,
Yeah.
and because of that, we can't just scale a software solution or code to millions of people overnight. This is something that takes capex, it takes financing, it takes really smart people, and it takes the ability to manufacture. And I think that's something the US has outsourced for many, many years. And
Yep.
I think we're starting to see a revitalization of manufacturing here in the US. So it's getting better. I think we still have some work to get done. But when it comes to getting this done, like how do you actually scale up in production? It's really a balancing act between uh, really recording the demand from specific customers or clients and trying to map out what are the real volumes that we need to get to so that we can service these customers. So for us right now, we're at this awkward point where we're not necessarily ready to scale up massively as a
Mm-hmm.
business, but we have a few different clients where they're expecting 10x 100x of what we can provide today. So it's a balancing act of how much do we scale up right now? How do we balance the risk associated, the capex associated with doing so? Because we don't want to build a production facility where we can service these clients, but now we're overbuilt and we are
Yes.
sunk assets at that point.
Yes.
So it's a huge balancing act of what can we scrounge up using like tool manufacturers? Can we move it into our friend's industrial facility and take
Yeah.
like 1,000 square feet of it for now?
Yeah.
So right now it's a lot of like band-aid solutions to service the
To meet
customer.
the
We
demand.
don't we
Yeah.
don't want to lose the
Yeah.
customer.
Dang.
It's fun.
I mean that I think that's one of the most fun calls you can get as a founder where like it's the customer. It's like, yeah, we want to order 10x more. And you're like, uh-huh.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
But how are we
Yep.
gonna do it? Nobody knows. Okay.
Nobody knows.
No, nobody knows. Okay, Mason, why did you get into this? Why are you doing a venture back company? God bless your soul.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I didn't intend to raise money for the
Oh, see.
company.
Oh, okay. Oh, shoot. Okay.
Like I mean, I
Well, you
guess
were at
the there.
Techstars. You were in entrepreneurial type of things. You were a
Yeah,
textile engineer. Okay, tell us more.
yeah. So I guess the intention was to not start a company that would raise VC dollars. I think we just realized that that was necessary for our kind of business, because we're in this arena of deep technology.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, deep tech, the best way I can describe deep tech is it is a kind of startup that is built upon some fundamental scientific innovation that does not yet exist in mass or excess. And
Mm-hmm.
that because of that, it requires a ton of capital to go from the idea stage to a full-fledged business, because you're
Yeah.
building something that not only does not exist, but you also are building something that has a lot of technology risk, inherent technology
Yeah.
risk.
Well, it's coming
So
out of the lab, literally.
literally coming out of the lab, right? Like we
Yeah.
started this in beakers. Well, actually, it came out of our garage. Like we built a little clean room in our garage to make this stuff, which is
Little
another
garage,
story.
literal garage story. I love it. Okay, good,
Yeah,
good.
that's a garage story. But I think what put us on this path is, I mean, for many years, my co-founder and I met him 10 years ago. We started another company together before this, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a manufacturing company that you can get started in a few weeks and start generating revenue. And then we worked together in research, where we were part of a material science team at our university,
Hmm.
developing new technologies for NASA. So making high temperature shielding materials for NASA rockets so they can re-enter the atmosphere without blowing up. So really, really advanced high temperature materials. And then we came across this field of nanotechnology.
Yes.
Nanotechnology is this idea of something that could be, let's say, 10,000 times thinner than a human hair, but be stronger than steel. So it's hard to
Hmm.
imagine, right, where you have this really, really tiny material, but it can have so many benefits to society because it can do so much without requiring a lot, essentially.
And what do you
And
mean by you're saying requiring a lot? You mean as in like physically moving it, as in actually producing it, as in tell us more.
yeah, so for example, a nanomaterial,
Yeah.
right? If we think about the actual amount of like surface area this nanomaterial has, like the amount of surface it
Teeny, teeny,
has,
teeny. Yeah.
is teeny. But if you take 1 gram of a certain nanomaterial, it will have the same surface area as a football field. One little gram
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm.
So it's insane because it's so tiny, but because it's so tiny, there's so many nooks and crannies on a microscopic scale that when you unravel all of it, it's literally if you took a football field and crunched it up into a tiny little material.
Yeah.
And that's the world of nanomaterials. So because of that, you could use a nanomaterial and use like a little tiny amount of it,
Type name.
mix it into something like concrete and make it 10 times stronger, for example. So that's really the magic of nanotechnology. It's like salt to a steak. You add just a little bit,
Oh,
but it gives you
changes
that
the
much more of a
entire.
difference.
Very
Everything.
great analogy for nanotechnology. It's the salt on the steak. It brings out the
Exactly. That's
flavors like
exactly
you
what it
never
is.
even thought of. Oh, that's great.
Exactly what it is.
Got
Exactly,
you.
exactly.
Okay. So how did you have the discussion with your co-founder to say like, hey, should we do this?
I mean, it's a good question, Beck. I would say this was on the tail end of our first startup that we had,
Yes.
where we were manufacturing essentially carbon fiber panels. So they were pretty much like panels of carbon fiber, which is a high strength material, very
Yep.
light. They use it in like aerospace, cars, you name it. Nothing innovative by any means, but it was a cool small business that we started, and we got good traction. We sold to companies like Red Bull. We sold to different data center companies.
Hmm.
So it was a wild ride, and we did this all in our first couple of years in college. So,
Love it.
it was such a trip doing that, and
So this is
it was
literal
the best
college
time.
dorm slash
Literally.
your garage, as you said.
Exactly. So I think the conversation started because one day, as we're going through our degree programs, we get really fascinated by this world of material science, where you can build things at the atomic level and fundamentally change society.
Yeah.
And that was super fascinating to us. So one day we were reading this book in the library, and we discovered this material called nanocellulose. So nanocellulose is a nanomaterial you can get from any plant on the planet.
Hmm.
And this nanomaterial has 8 times the strength of steel. So very, very high strength from any plant on the planet. And you can use this to make so many things. You could use it to make alternatives to plastic. You
Yep.
can use it to be a reinforcer into current plastics or concretes because of how strong it is. You could even turn it into a fiber to make textiles. So it's such a universal material, and we saw
So
this as like,
wait. You're just casually in the library flipping a book, and you're like, oh, hey, look at this. Hey,
I
look.
know it sounds so crazy, but it's just nerdy material scientists in the library.
Hey, I love it. God, that's great. Okay, so you were like, hey, man, we should do this.
I would say pretty much. Like we
Yeah.
saw it like, hey, this is pretty cool. This could really change the world. And we're tired of getting so much grant funding for our university and not seeing any of it, and also not being able to push this into the world. There are always these sideload grants and experiments and research opportunities in a university where it doesn't really reach the real world. So we thought, okay, we have to make something that we could present to the industry at large, because that's where it's going to create the most impact. So we decided, hey, there's something interesting here. Do you think we can do something here? And we said, all right, let's do it. Let's build this up.
So wait, let's go back to the grant thing, because that's under duress right now in the current landscape of things. So break that down. The university would get, of course, whatever grant money or whatever, but you, the scientist, you, the student, would be like, yeah, but where's my project getting funding? So there was a gap there that you saw?
More so that we were the undergraduate researchers on the team, and typically the
So
way
you're the lowliest of the lowly down there.
yeah, we're at the bottom of
The
the
double
totem pole.
PhD. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But
no
at
one's
the
getting
time,
money.
we were contributing a lot of the technology know-how to the research. So we inadvertently helped them raise almost $1.5 million of funding for projects. And, we wouldn't see any of it. We wouldn't get attached to the intellectual property like the patents. But I think most importantly, we just wanted to see this stuff go into the world. And there's only so much you can do in a university, right? There's only so much you can
Yes.
do at that level.
Yes. So you're like, okay, we need to get the hell out of the university. We
Pretty much.
need to get to the garage, basically.
Yeah,
At the library,
exactly.
into the garage. Okay.
Yeah, not a step up by any means, right?
Yeah.
Like no
No.
AC.
No. Yeah. No.
Yep,
No.
yep.
I'm
Charlotte's
I'm
Web
not
coming
glamorizing
down.
the garage. There's no glamorizing of the garage here. Okay. Mason, you've been at this now for a couple of years. What's become clear to you in now doing this startup?
I think what's become clear is it's interesting. When we first started the business, and the problem we have is we are developing this new material. And imagine you invented steel for the first time. How many
Yeah.
things you steal today? So many things.
So
So
many.
if you were in the early stages of developing this material, unless there was a direct need for it, there's so many options of where you can go. So I would say in the early days of the company, we did a lot of, soul searching, trying to understand what was the best way to build this business, what was the best product, what was the best application. And in the early days, because of my experience in the textile industry, I thought the strongest market opportunity was turning this high strength material into alternatives to materials used in the fashion industry. So replacing polyester, replacing animal hides, so on and so forth. And I think what we realized in that journey is that, the fashion industry has been trying to solve these problems
Oh
for
my God, for
decades,
freaking decades.
forever.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and introducing a new material is challenging. It's
Yes.
challenging. So because of
And
that,
honestly, I'm glad you say that, just because the textiles, and I've talked to lots of people who kind of maybe float around in fashion and stuff. I don't particularly like it as an industry, because there's also this like aversion, I would say, to anything new, novel, technology-ish focus, and fashion just seems to kind of just drag along reluctantly in innovation, and even in body sizes and shape. I don't want to touch that industry with a 10-foot pole, frankly.
Yeah.
So you're like, no on the textiles. What else we got?
Yeah, so it's just we realize the ecosystem you build a startup in is equally as important as your strategy going into
Yes.
the industry. In the fashion
Yes.
industry, the ecosystem that exists for innovation is almost non-existent when we talk about actual real change and adoption, because their favorite thing to do is to do capsule collections, saying we
Yes.
just use this mushroom leather for this shoe,
Yes.
and we only made like 10
3.
units.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 3 or 10 units. But the company that designed the innovation, like the true material science to make this mushroom-based technology, probably raised 30, $50 million at this point,
Yep.
then be led on to believe there's going to be a mass rollout. And we've just seen time and time again, the fashion brands have just fallen short of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we've taken away is the ecosystem is just as important as the strategy. And that changed our perspective when we thought about what are we good at? What's our background? And what the hell does this stuff do? Like, what is it great at doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is great at being a high strength material that you can use to upgrade existing materials.
Super salt.
Yeah, exactly. Super
Super
salt,
salt
right?
on steak. Super salt on steak.
There
Yep.
you go. Exactly. And I
Yep.
think we're going through this moment right now in the US where manufacturing is becoming so important when it comes to rebuilding our manufacturing base, but also
Big time.
national security. We need
Yes.
to think about how we can bring that back. And a lot of that right now, a lot of drivers in the industry across industries like concrete or even carbon fiber or even other materials, it's very cost driven right now. We're just in an economic environment
Yeah.
where, the innovation that we are focusing on has to be driven by cost reduction or supply chain security. Those seem to be the things that are top of
Yes,
mind.
because it's not about saving the planet. I'm sorry to say, as we
Not
have,
right now. Not right
it's
now.
not. No,
Future.
it's not now. And
Yeah.
frankly, I really don't think it's ever, honestly,
It's
because
just
we are selfish
tough.
mofos out there as humans,
Yeah.
and so are companies, frankly, because they're ran by humans. And so,
Exactly.
no, if it's not faster, cheaper, and better, I'm really not interested in paying 2x for the cost of it to save
Exactly.
an elephant, which is
Yeah.
great, but not my agenda, frankly. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Most companies think that way, and we're humans. That's the human collective mentality, I would say.
Yes, yes. Well, Mason, very exciting. Okay, now go back to you touched on it just here, like, oh, in manufacturing in the US and stuff. Are you touching, is because I find this now for any startup and any founder we're talking, you are going to run into regulatory something, state, federal, blah, 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 grants, whatever. You're coming out of the lab or something like that. How have you navigated, I would say, just the, or maybe not, maybe you haven't, but it sounds like you have, policy, federal, state,
Yeah.
buffoonery, let's say,
Yeah. There's a ton of it for sure.
regulatory things.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So I think what's interesting there
Mhm.
is I'll give an example where we're starting to expand into the Department of Defense. And I think what's really good about the Department of Defense right now is there's a ton of government contracts and funding sources available to new companies like us that are developing new solutions that can help rebuild US manufacturing. So what's been really helpful for us is being able to participate in things like SBIRs, which are essentially, government created programs to provide funding to startups.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's also just a ton of policy related to utilizing more US based materials. So we're actually trying to leverage that policy, like the Berry Amendment that compels a lot of companies to rely on US based sourcing. We're relying on that policy to actually gain traction.
Hmm.
Where in the composite industry, so think of carbon fiber, fiberglass, Kevlar, etc. Some of it's like carbon fiber, for example, is a premium material,
Yeah.
and it's such a durable, strong, lightweight material, but it's so expensive.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to design, let's say, an aircraft with this material and you want it to be as light as possible for maximum fuel efficiency, maximum speed, cost is going to be a constraint. So the U.S. will sometimes source carbon fiber materials from international sources,
Hmm.
which if we want
That's
to
a supply
really
chain. Yeah.
supply chain issue, right? So what
Well,
we're
and you
what
can
we're
argue a
relying on,
security issue too. Yeah.
yeah, I would say
All the
security is
things.
one of
Yeah.
the
It's
key
more
issues.
primary. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're doing in that scenario is we're saying, hey, we're going to allow you, or we're going to enable you to use lower grade carbon fiber that's produced here in the U.S. That's pretty cheap. And previously, you had problems because that lower grade carbon could not perform as well. Well, with our nanotechnology, we
You
work
got
with
super
companies
salt.
where they
Yeah.
take our nanotechnology and they coat it onto low grade carbon so it performs like high
Oh.
grade carbon
Oh.
without the drastic cost increase, because that cost difference normally between the low grade and the higher intermediate to higher grade is like 66% cost increase.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
Our
Yeah.
technology,
Significant.
they can reach something similar with only around a 5% or 10% cost increase. So you help them have more access to lower
Mason,
grade
it is
material.
literally the super salt.
Super salt. That's what we're doing.
Super
Super
salt on
salt.
any steak you want.
Exactly.
Eat
Super
it up.
cellulose salt. What we do.
Ah, Mason, we should end it there. This is the super salt. Look at
We're the
that.
super salt. That's it.
Dang,
That'll be
man.
on our branding and everything.
Yeah,
Super
there you
salt.
go. There's your free PR there for a second there. Yeah, this is good. Thank you for the shout out for the book too. Every founder, please read this book so you understand the messaging and marketing and all the things. Anyway, Mason Mincey, he's co-founder and COO of Soarce. Thank you for being here today, Mason. I never thought of using nanotechnology in an analogy like salt, so I learned something today, and I freaking love it. Actually, very
There you go.
digestible to understand.
That's good. That's good. That's our mission with the company. We want to be the biggest producer of nanomaterials in the world, and I think that starts off with people just knowing how to use it and what it can do.
Sprinkle it on. Sprinkle it on.
Sprinkle it on. That's it. That'll be the tagline. At
Sprinkle
Source, we just
it
sprinkle it
on.
on.
Sprinkle on. Sprinkle it in.
That's it. Just sprinkle some in. Just put some in. It's all good.
Love it. Thank you, Mason. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Beck. Of course. Thanks for having me.